Hi, thank you for having me. So it's only 10 minutes, so I'm going to speak. I'll try to speak at my usual really fast pace, but no faster. I guess the first thing is I want to talk about Gov as an API. This is going data gov.au on steroids. This is going way above and beyond just data and getting into something far more profound. But just to step back, the concept of government as a platform. I mean, at this conference, most people will understand that concept a little bit, but just to give some context. Around the world, a lot of governments have sort of got into the idea of government as a platform. Let's use common platforms, let's use common standards, let's try and be more efficient and effective, it's generally been interpreted as creating platforms within government that are common. I think that we can do a lot better. So government as an API is about making government one big API, making the stuff that government does discoverable programmatically, making the stuff that it does consumable programmatically, making government the platform or a platform on which industry and citizens and indeed other governments can actually innovate and value add. So there are many examples of this which I'll get to, but the concept here is getting towards the idea of a mashable government. Now, I'm not here representing my employers or my current job or any of that kind of stuff. I'm here speaking as a geek in government doing some cool stuff. And obviously you've had the Digital Transformation Office mentioned today. There's stuff coming about that, but I'm working in there at the moment doing some cool stuff that I'm looking forward to telling you all about. So I keep an eye out. But I want you to consider the concept of mashable government. So Australia is a country where we have a fairly egalitarian, democratic view of the world. So in our minds, and this is important to note, in our minds there is a role for government. Now, there's obviously some differences around the edges about how big or small or how much it should do or shouldn't do or whatever. But the concept is that we're not going to have government going anywhere. Government will continue to deliver things. Government, has a role of delivering things. The idea of mashable government is making what government does more accessible, more mashable. As a citizen, when you want to find something out, you don't care which jurisdiction it is, you don't care which agency it is, you don't care. In some cases, you don't care who you're talking to, you don't care what number you have to call, you just want to get what you need. Part of the problem, of course, is what are all the services of government? There is no single place right now. What are all of the, what's all the content? With over 1,000 websites, well, more, but with lots and lots of websites just in the federal government and then thousands more across the state and territories, where's the right place to go? And, and sometimes people talk about, what if we had improved SEO? Or what if we had improved, themes or templates and such. If everyone has improved SEO, you still have the same exact problem today, don't you? You do a Google search and then you still have lots of things to choose from, and which one's authoritative, which one's the most useful, which one's the most available. The concept of government as an API is making content, services, APIs, data, the stuff that government produces, either directly or indirectly, more available to collate in a way that is user-centric. That actually puts the user at the center of the design, but then also puts the understanding that other people, businesses, governments, will be able to provide value on top of what we do. So I want you to imagine that all of that is available and that everything was API enabled. I want you to imagine third-party reuse, new applications, and I mean, we see small examples of that today. So to give you a couple of examples of where government's already experimenting with this idea. Data gov.au, obviously my little baby, is one little example of this. It's a microcosm. But whilst ever data, open data, was just a list of things, a catalogue of stuff, it was never going to be that high value. So what we did when we relaunched Data gov.au a couple of years ago was we said, what makes data valuable to people? Well, programmatic access. Discovery is useful, but if you can't get access to it, it's almost just annoying to be able to find it but not be able to access it. So how do we make it most useful? How do we make it most reusable, most high value in capacity, shall we say, in potentia? So it was about programmatic access, it was about good metadata, it was about making it so it's of value to citizens and industry, but also to government itself. If a government agency needs to build a service, a citizen service to do something, rather than building an API to an internal system that's privately available only to their application, which will cost them money, they could put the data in data gov.au, whether it's spatial or tabular and soon to be relational, different data types have different data provision needs. So being able to centralize that function reduces the cost of providing it, making it easy for agencies to get the most out of their data, reduce the cost of delivering what they need to deliver on top of the data, also creates that opportunity for external innovation. And I know that there's already been loads of applications and analysis and uses of data that's on data.gov.au, and it's only increasing every day because we took open data from being a retrospective, freedom of information, compliance issue, which was never going to be sexy, right? To a, this is how you can do your business better. This is how we can enable innovation. This is how agencies can find each other's data better and reuse it and not have to continually repeat the wheel. So we built a business proposition for data.gov.au that started to make it successful. So that's been cool. There's been experimentation of this in the ATO, with the SBR API, with the ABN lookup or ABR lookup API. There's so many businesses out there, I'm sure there's a bunch in the room. When you build an application where someone puts in a business name into a app or into a application or a transaction or whatever, you can use the ABN lookup API to validate the business name. So, it's a really simple validation service. It means that you don't have, as unfortunately we have right now in the whole of government contracts data set, 279 different spellings for the Department of Defence. Thanks, guys. You can start to actually get that, use what government already has as validation services, as something to build upon. I really look forward to having whole of government up-to-date spatial data that's freely available so people can build value on top of it. That'll be very exciting. At some point I hope that happens. But industry experimented this with their energy ratings data set. It's a very quick example. They had to build an app, as ministers love to see, and but they built a very, very useful app to actually compare when you're in the store, your fridges and all the rest of it, and see what's best for you. But what they found, by putting the data on data.gov.au, they saved money immediately, and there's a brilliant video, if you go looking for this, that Department of Industry put together with Martin Hoffman that you should have a look at, which is very good. But what they found is by having the data out there, all the companies, all the retail companies that have to, by law, put the energy rating of every electrical device they sell on their brochures, traditionally they did it by Googling, right? What's the energy rating of this? Whatever other retail companies are using will use that. Completely, out of date and unauthorized and not true, inaccurate. So by having the data set publicly available, kept up to date on a daily basis, suddenly they were able to massively reduce the cost of compliance for a piece of regulatory, so it actually reduced red tape. And then other applications started being developed that were very useful. And government doesn't have all the answers, and no one pretends that, and people love to pretend also that government also has no answers. I think there's a healthy balance in between. We've got a whole bunch of cool innovators in government doing cool stuff, but we have to work in partnership, and part of that includes using our stuff to enable cool innovation out there. ABS obviously does a lot of work with APIs, and that's been wonderful to see. But also the National Health Services Directory. I don't know how many people here know that, but it's a directory of loads and loads and loads, thousands, tens of thousands possibly, of health services across Australia, all API enabled. Brilliant sort of work. So API enabled computing and systems and modular program design, agile program design is pretty typical for all of you, because you're in industry and you're kind of used to that, and you're used to getting up to date with the latest thing that'll make you competitive. Moving government towards that kind of approach will take a little longer, but but that has started. But and if you take an API-enabled approach to your systems design, it is relatively trivial to take an API approach to exposing that publicly. So I think I only had 10 minutes. So imagine if all the public government information and services were usefully discoverable, not just through using a Google search, with appropriate metadata and even consumable in some cases. What if you could actually consume some of those transaction systems or information or services and be able to then reuse it somewhere else? Because when someone is, about to, have a baby, they Google for it first, right? And then they go to probably a baby that they don't think to come to government in the first instance. So we need to make it easier for government to go to them. When they go to baby.com, why wouldn't baby.com be able to present to them the information that they need from government as well? This is where we're starting to sort of think when we start following the rabbit warren of Govers and API. So start thinking about what you would use. If all of these things were discoverable, or even some of them were discoverable and consumable, how would you use it? How would you innovate? How would you better serve your customers by leveraging government as an API? So government has and always will play a part. This is about making government just another platform to help enable our wonderful egalitarian and democratic society. Thank you very much.